So glad you are with us on the Retirement Revolution. Brad Johansson with Rob Guy. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, Brad. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We are in times. As we introduce folks to you, and for a lot of you, this may be the first time you're watching. Rob, this is kind of home for you and been home, a lifelong home for you. How long have you been doing this now?
I've been doing financial planning on the North Shore of Boston for 35 years now.
35 years,
Yeah.
3.5 decades.
Yes.
You've seen a lot of roller coasters.
Sure have. Yeah.
Rob, we're riding a roller coaster at the time.
Yeah, we sure are.
People get to this point of when we talk about recency bias. The recency bias is things have been good. It's been great. And for a lot of people, it was, you know what, we're going to get this person in the White House and it's all going to be good and we're going to ride that slope continually up.
Right.
We work for accumulation.
Yeah.
Now we hit something, and a lot of people who are watching this are either approaching retirement or in retirement and going, what am I supposed to do? Does this feel weird to you or normal over the 35 years that you've been doing this?
Well, that's a great question, Brad. You know, we've had lots of ups and downs over that 30-year period, from markets going up 100% to down 50% and everything really in between. But I would say it's a little bit unique right now in that we are having some unprecedented things happening with tariffs and so forth and markets correcting. But we do need to keep our mind on the big picture.
What's the big picture?
Well, the big picture is, what is your actual goal? You have to begin with the end in mind. The big picture is, how do I undo that financial knot that's in my stomach, right? That's actually what we're known for, Brad, is helping people get rid of that financial knot that's in their stomach. And with all the volatility, all the change, all the things that are going on today, that knot is tighter than ever for me.
Yeah, there are a lot of people with the knot. Is it because you don't have a plan that the knot comes up? Look, you say you've been doing this for 35 years. This isn't a hobby for you. This is what you do. But for a lot of us, 35 years has been our career of getting ready to do this.
Right.
Now we approach retirement. Why do you see the knots when things suddenly change like that in the marketplaces we've seen over the last several weeks or so?
It's because people aren't prepared, right? When you have answers, it relieves the anxiety and the confusion. So I've never seen more anxiety, confusion, and overwhelm than I have recently. It really seems to be something that has taken over everybody. If you're poor, if you have a decent amount of money, or if you're totally loaded and rich, everybody is worried about one thing or another right now. And one of the things that's happening is nobody's getting the type of advice that they need. I really see that as a real problem out there.
Okay, let's talk about that, because many people have advisors.
Yeah.
They've had multiple advisors over their time. Why wouldn't it be at a time when someone needs an advisor so desperately that they're suddenly going, I don't know what I'm going to do? Isn't the idea getting prepared for the what if of the markets doing something you didn't think they were going to do?
Well, that's right. And, you know, like we mentioned at the beginning, people watching this show, they're probably either retired or they're preparing for retirement. Otherwise, why are you watching Retirement Revolution, right? And so they've probably already figured out that this planning for retirement thing is a heck of a lot more confusing than saving for retirement, okay? Those were difficult years. We had to have discipline. We had to put money aside. We had to accumulate enough money to retire. And sure, that's a challenge. But what's a lot more challenging is making that transition from the working years, where you had a paycheck coming in, to the distribution and preservation years, where you're trying to figure out, how do I get a tax-efficient income stream from what I've been able to accumulate to last me the rest of me and my family's life? And what we're finding is the advisors that are out there, they're all accumulation-based. They're all having people save for retirement. They don't really specialize in retirement distribution planning, which is what we do. The person that got you here, the advisor that got you to retirement, might not be the person that gets you through, because it's a completely different set of skills and there's a lot more information that you need to know. from Social Security claiming strategies, pension distribution options, proper asset allocation, withdrawal strategies, estate planning, long-term care. The list goes on and on. You know, you don't have to worry about most of those things when you're just saving for retirement. But nobody's getting the advice they need, Brad. So they're either completely lost with their advisor right now who hasn't addressed when they should claim Social Security, hasn't talked to them about reallocating their portfolio for retirement, hasn't done all these things that they need to do. They don't have a plan. They just have a portfolio. You need a plan.
6 years ago, you put together this book, and I want to talk about that because you're now encompassing a lot of what you did back then and said, you know what, people need to know this stuff. Talk to me about the book. What's in this book?
Right. So the book is called Retire Free, 5 Steps Towards Living Your Best Retirement. And what I do in the book is I highlight the lessons I've learned walking the retirement walk with hundreds of Boston area families for 30 years now. I know what works. I know what doesn't. I know the conventional wisdom is usually not the way to go. So I'm trying to give the information that they're going to need to make that transition from those working years into the retirement years.
And you're also in an update phase. I think that's what you're talking about is moving from the accumulation to distribution, is that there's a constant update phase.
That's right.
And maybe for a lot of the people who are watching this program, you're already going, well, my advisors never talked to me about some of those things. And why not?
Yeah.
Maybe this is a time for a second opinion for a lot of people. And I think that's why you're here.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
The idea from going from anxiety to really easing people's minds on what it is. What's the main focus when you say the 5 things of getting people ready to retire and making sure that it is freedom's kind of your word.
It is, yeah. Freedom.
And I know that's a Boston thing. That's your area. Why do you want to focus on that to lead people into this retirement phase that you feel freedom has to be attached to it so you can do what you want to do?
Right. Well, the whole idea of the book, Retire Free, and the name kind of the process, the Retirement Freedom Roadmap, really was designed because I feel after a lifetime of hard work, there are certain freedoms that everybody's entitled to. You have a freedom from the fear of running out of money.
Which is people's greatest fear right now.
The greatest fear. Number one fear, they poll it all the time, the number one fear. And I see sometimes people with 500,000, I see sometimes people with 5 million. You know what? They're both worried about running out of money.
Exactly.
Because they have different scenarios, right? So you have freedom from the fear of running out of money. You have freedom from Wall Street manipulation and fees. And I really think Wall Street is more for the carnival barkers, okay? I believe in something called evidence-based investing, and I also believe that people should make the transition from growth to preservation. So we believe in, we call the retirement income plan, right? Retirement freedom income plan, or retirement freedom investment strategy. We look at investments. Then you also want to be free from the fear of losing everything in the last few years of your life, right? People might have done everything right, and maybe a long-term care illness will take everything away. So people should be free to keep their money to stay in their home.
They're trying to listen to somebody who's going to ease that fear.
Yeah.
They're looking for a trusted advice. Do you have anybody that maybe you can think of even in the last few years that has come through? And the last 5 years have been tough in your area, especially for healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Who are looking for that advice,
right,
and wondering whether that one voice is going to be anything that comes to mind in that?
Well, you know, in the Boston area, we have a lot of hospitals. We have a lot of healthcare workers. And my mom was a nurse, so I love nurses. And my mother-in-law is a nurse, so I love nurses twice as much. And they really took the brunt of COVID. You know, a lot of the people that I work with are healthcare workers. They work in Partners, which owns Brigham and Mass General and big hospitals in Boston. And they really, many of them are feeling like overwhelmed and burned out. And they're ready to get out. I'll give you an example. I met with a couple that was referred to me. It was a nurse and her husband. And they had met with a financial advisor. She wanted to retire desperately. You know, COVID really burned her out.
Yeah,
I'm done, ready to go. Met with an advisor, did a whole big financial plan. He told her, need to work for 3 more years. She was devastated by that. You know, and he had some model that he used that made no sense to me. Came in and saw me, did a full analysis for them. We looked at their income, investments, taxes, the whole thing. And we were able to determine she could easily retire now. Can you imagine if she had worked 3 more years and the information was there. The person which gave her bad advice didn't know how to interpret it, didn't really know about retirement planning and the strategies that might be available to help her retire early. So Mary was actually able to retire. She had a box of tissues there on the conference room table, and she picked them up and she literally cried. And you know what? I had tears in my eyes too. Because one of the biggest joys in my life is sitting at the conference table saying, you've made it, you've done it, you won. Now we just have to keep what you have and make sure that you can enjoy your life in peace.
You changed the roadmap.
I changed the roadmap.
And that's the idea for you, because her story may be different than yours, but of course it is. Why don't you want your story to be told the way you'd like it to be told? And maybe you just need a roadmap. So Rob is offering a retirement freedom roadmap for you, for anybody who comes in complimentary. You can call the number on your screen, 855-255-1128, or you can scan the QR code. Would you like a copy of the book? Ooh, maybe I'd like to retire free. A copy of the book is yours as well as you come in for an appointment. But maybe that roadmap is just what you've been looking for. Maybe that knot in your stomach is still pulling at you, and you'd like some freedom from that. 855-255-1128. Let's put a freedom roadmap together for you that makes your retirement look like no one else's, the best that you'd ever thought you could have. We'll be right back.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Revolution. Brad Johansson with Rob Guy, tax and investment advisors. And we're talking about trying to feel that freedom. Maybe loosen the knots that are in your stomach as the time moves on and we continue to get change. It is the one constant that we have. And certainly in 2025, our constant is daily of change. Are you feeling that even with the phone calls, the people who are coming into the office? Is there just straight fear for a lot of people right now?
Well, there really is. There really is. So there's 2 different types of people coming into the office right now.
Okay.
There's my clients, and they're at peace because we've put plans in place to withstand different economic conditions, okay? But there's other people who are coming into my office overwhelmed and confused and frustrated, okay? They've put a lifetime of work into accumulating what they have, and now they feel like a lot of it is at risk.
There are different parts of the country.
Yeah.
Yours is unique. Describe the New England area and the clients that you see.
Yeah.
Is there a general? Is there a stereotype? Or is it what you're seeing in the office Maybe two types of people, maybe you get a lot of different types of people that you're dealing with right now.
Well, we do see lots of different types of people, but there are certain people that we really can help the most, that we bring the most value to.
Yeah.
And we work with typical, hardworking New England families, right, who understand hard work and discipline. And they didn't get to where they are by luck. They got to where they are by working very hard and making sacrifices along the way. A lot of times when their friends were out buying the bigger home or the boat or going on the vacations or out to dinners more maybe than they should, my clients typically weren't, okay? They had the discipline to save, and they lived within their means. Now they've built a large accumulation of assets that they feel a responsibility to do the right thing with. So, if most of them are, say, between 50 and 75 years old, they have between $500,000 and $5 million in their retirement portfolios. And they're just trying to figure out, how do I minimize my taxes? How do I get the most out of my portfolio? How do I protect my family?
All right, let's talk about that, because that goes into your book, Retire Free, and you list 5 things within that. You also say within the roadmap, so people are going to say, okay, retirement freedom roadmap, what the heck? What does that include, and why is each piece important if you're going to make retirement work?
Yeah, so I really firmly believe that a comprehensive look at the 5 most important areas of your financial life is your best defense against all the risks you're going to face in retirement.
Okay.
And I've identified those 5 key areas through my 30 years of working with all these people.
Yeah.
The first area is what we call the Retirement Freedom Income Plan. So what does that mean? Well, that means you have a challenge, and that challenge is replacing a lifetime with paychecks
gone
with an income you can never outlive.
Yeah.
Now, what we want to factor into that, though, is, let's say you said you needed $70,000 or $80,000 a year to live on today.
Okay.
Have you thought about what that might mean in 10 or 15 or 20 years after inflation? So maybe you have a strategy in place that we can give you the amount of money you need today, but what about how much money are you going to need over the next 30 years of your life?
Okay.
And that could be a pretty big number.
That's your income plan.
Your income plan, you want to maximize your Social Security. What is the optimal time for you to claim Social Security? So I had a client in the office the other day. We were trying to figure out what would be the best Social Security claiming strategy for them. What age? You can claim at 62, you can claim at 67, he could have claimed at 70. We ran all the numbers, and what I'll tell you, here's again where you got a buck conventional wisdom. If you just look at the software, almost every software program will tell you to file at 70. Because if you live till 90 and you file at 70, it'll show you have the most income.
Sure.
That's not the right strategy for most people. I was working with a couple where we were able to show them that actually turning their Social Security on earlier at 65 was going to have a lot greater impact on their ability to enjoy a more comfortable retirement. So it wasn't necessarily what's going to give me the most money by the time I'm age 90. It's what's going to fit my plan so I can enjoy myself in my 60s and 70s and so forth. So important decisions, income decisions, where you pull your money from, for example, in retirement. You might have money in taxable accounts, tax-deferred accounts, and tax-free accounts. Well, conventional wisdom, take all the money out of the taxable account first. Maybe that's your joint account or a trust account. And then they'd say hit the tax-deferred account later, wait, defer as long as you can, and then you hit the tax-free later. Well, guess what? We ran an analysis, again, for a couple who came in and said, our broker told us just, empty our taxable account, then hit our tax deferred. We were able to show them a strategy where using a combination of taking some of the money out of the taxable, some of the money out of the tax deferred, some of the money out of the tax free, where we were paying attention to tax brackets and average tax rates, we were able to show this couple not only to how to have more income, but they paid 50% less in taxes than they would have had they gone with the traditional route. So, it's up to you. You can follow conventional wisdom and pay twice as much taxes, or you can get proactive. You can find out what strategies are legally available to you that the wealthy take advantage of all the time, by the way. We'll bring these down to the mom and pops who deserve this type of information. So we have our income plan. We have our investment strategy. We have to make sure that our investment strategy matches our need. You had a goal when you were investing your entire life, was to accumulate enough money to retire, and you had a long way to go and a long time to do it. And if the market went up and down, it really didn't matter. But guess what happens? You turn 60 years old or you're about to retire. It doesn't matter what the market does over 30 years. It matters what it's going to do in the next 5 or 10. Yeah. That's called sequence of return risk. It's that the market crashes at the wrong time for you. If you retired in, depending on when you retired, if you retired in 2000, right? That was a rough year to retire because the S&P 500 was just about as low at the end of the 2000s, 2009 as it was in 2000. Then you have your health care plan. You want to make sure you don't lose everything to a nursing home. You want to be able to stay in your home as long as possible. You don't want to become a burden on your family. And then you want to have an estate and legacy plan. Maybe you have more money than you ever dreamed you were going to. Well, when you run the numbers and you see, in fact, that you really do, maybe there's some gifting you can do, some charitable planning you can do. There's some wonderful things you can do to optimize your legacy and your estate, either for your family, your children, your grandchildren, or maybe a charity that you care about. But either way, each piece of that plan needs to be talking to one another. People are not getting this information from their so-called brokers. They're not. And God forbid they're going on Google and trying to figure out how to put together a retirement plan on the internet. It's so full of misinformation and contradictory information. People need a trusted advisor that they can turn to, who can look at their income plan, their investment strategy, their tax strategy, healthcare, and legacy, find out how it all works together and coordinates with one another so that they can be in the best position to minimize those risks they're going to face and to have the best outcome for them and their family possible.
Have you struggled finding that trusted person? Because the puzzle is so complicated, because you're so overwhelmed, because you don't know the answers. Maybe you didn't even know the questions to ask, and now you're hearing something that you haven't heard from your advisor before, or things that you should know that you thought should be explained to you. Why don't you come in for a Retirement Freedom Roadmap? It is complimentary, and with that, the Retire Free book that Rob has put together, 855-255-1128. The idea is to make it simple. And if you're missing some of the pieces of the puzzle, when would you like to know? 855-255-1128. Scan the QR code. Come in for a complimentary Retirement Freedom Roadmap and a copy of the book, and maybe lead you on the right path for the first time. We'll be right back.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to the Retirement Revolution. Brad Johansson with Rob Guy, tax and investment advisors. We're really thrilled to be able to bring this to you, especially in times of uncertainty. And we have very little time. 4 major risks, and it's not just the market. There are things that people aren't paying attention to. Take us through those real quickly.
Okay. So the 4 major risks that people are going to face when they're making this retirement journey are, number one, it's some people are going to get massively, massively hit with taxes. And they're absolutely unaware that that's happening right now. So I'll tell you, talk a little bit more about that. But number one is taxes, okay? Big tax risk. Number 2 is losing too much money at the wrong time for them. So not having the appropriate portfolio for them at this time in their life and reevaluating what their needs really are, what they need to actually earn. Markets have been doing so well for so long, people are way overweighted. And so, you want to make sure that you're not taking too much risk with your family's portfolio. Risk number 3 is losing everything in the last few years of your life, or maybe even the last few months of your life. So maybe you did everything right. You had an income plan, you had a tax plan, you had an estate plan, you did everything, but you ignored long-term care. And long-term care is one of those expenses that at one point or another, a large number of people are going to need in one form or another, right? We're living longer and longer, but we don't necessarily stay healthy that entire time.
7 out of 10 over 65 going to need long-term care.
That's right.
And number 4?
And number 4 is living a just-in-case life, okay? This is going to sound a little weird, but what's a just-in-case life? People won't spend their money. They're afraid to spend their money because they've spent their whole life accumulating. That's all they know how to do. One of the things that I do in my practice is convincing people you can enjoy this money. This is your money. You worked hard for it. One of the ways we can help people feel better about spending their money is by doing a very detailed income analysis where we look at their income year after year. We look at their taxes. We use different assumptions about inflation and so forth. Then they feel like they have permission to spend money. It is very true that the certain mindset that you have that allows you to accumulate a lot of money. Most of the people I work with didn't make $1 million a year. They had discipline, they saved, they socked it away, they put it away. They learned how to live within their means. And now it's very difficult for them to have permission to spend their money. So, do they go on the vacation? Do they buy the car? Do they do the things that they want to do? They don't. You know what they do? They leave their money to their kids. You know what the kids do? They take the money, they go on vacation, they buy the house, they buy the car, they join the country club with your money. Yeah. Okay? You could have enjoyed it, but you didn't have the confidence to do that. You weren't quite sure where you stood. So it's so critically important to not live a just-in-case life. You work too hard. You have one life. This is your shot. And let's say you're 60, 62 years old. There's X amount of good years left. Get it in now. Don't wait. Find out if you can retire right now. And if you are retired, find out how much you can actually spend. Most people I sit down with and I say, how much money do you want to have left at the end? They say nothing. My kids will be fine. Then start spending it, right?
You want permission? You have permission now. Come in for a retirement freedom roadmap, 855-255-1128. Scan the QR code. Just in case you haven't heard us, it's your time now. We're grateful for your time. Thanks so much for joining us. Can't wait to see you in the office. Back here next time.